All right, everyone, welcome. As we wrap up our journey together through business mathematics, I want to pose a question. What if I told you that the most important thing you learned in this class wasn't a formula? That it wasn't how to find the derivative of a function or the steps for inverting a matrix? Today, we're going to reflect on something much bigger. We're going to look at the powerful new way of thinking you've built for yourselves, a framework that's really going to be the foundation for your entire career.
Centuries ago, Galileo had this incredible insight that the universe isn't random. It has a hidden logic, a structure that we can understand through math. And what we've discovered in our modern world is that the book of business is also written in this very same language. Things like market dynamics, supply chain logistics, consumer behavior, they might seem chaotic, but they're not. They have patterns, they have relationships, and they have underlying principles. And what this course has given you is the grammar and the syntax to not just read that book, but to start writing a few chapters of your own.
So with that big idea in mind, let's kick things off with a review. But listen, this isn't about memorizing formulas or testing you on old problem sets. Not at all. This is about zooming out, looking past the individual trees to see the whole forest. We're moving from just solving problems to truly understanding the principles behind them. Because really, anyone can be trained to plug numbers into a formula. But real mastery, that comes from knowing why you're using it and when it's the right tool for the job. That's the leap we're focusing on today. And that brings me to what is, without a doubt, the most important takeaway from our entire time together. Your biggest achievement in this course wasn't just getting the right answers. It was learning how to ask the right questions in a completely new language. You've learned how to take a messy, vague, real-world business challenge, something like, hey, how do we grow our market share? And translate it into a precise, structured, quantitative problem that you can actually solve. And that skill, that act of translation, is what separates a good manager from a truly great strategist. So what does this new language look like? Well, it really rests on three fundamental pillars. First up, quantifying uncertainty. Look, the future is always going to be unknown. We can't change that. But we can give that uncertainty a number. So instead of just saying, man, I hope this new product sells well, you can now say, okay, our market research suggests there's a 60% chance of high adoption, which would mean $3 million in profit, and a 40% chance of low adoption, resulting in $1 million loss. And then you can actually calculate the expected value. You take 0.6 times 3 million, add it to 0.4 times negative 1 million, and you get 1.4 million. See? All of a sudden, a wild guess becomes a calculated defensible risk. The second pillar is modeling complexity. A business is this incredibly intricate web of variables. We use models to create a simpler, workable version of that reality. For instance, with multiple linear regression, we can model our sales based on our actions, right? Something like sales equals some base amount plus the effect of our ad spend plus the effect of our price. Now, is the model perfect? Of course not. But it shows us how sensitive our sales are to the decisions we make. And that brings us to the third pillar, the ultimate goal, optimizing outcomes. Once you can model this system, you can start to improve it. Optimization is all about finding the absolute best result you can get with the resources you have. Think about it. How do we get the most out of our factory when we only have so many hours in the day and a limited supply of materials? This isn't a guessing game anymore. It's a solvable problem. Okay, so we've laid the foundation with those three pillars. Now let's talk about the actual toolkit you've built. We're shifting from the what to the how. We're going to explore how these abstract principles become real, tangible tools you can use to build a better business strategy. In this section, we'll see exactly how this new way of thinking completely transforms your approach to real-world challenges.
In any company you walk into, you're going to see two basic ways people make decisions. Over on the left, you've got the gut feel approach. This is all about experience, intuition, anecdotes. It can feel really fast and decisive, but here's the problem. It's incredibly vulnerable to personal bias, to emotional thinking, and it's almost impossible to look back and learn from your mistakes. But on the right, that's the world you're now equipped to lead, the world of data-informed decisions. Now, let me be clear, this doesn't mean we throw intuition out the window. Not at all. Intuition is fantastic for coming up with ideas, for forming a hypothesis, but then we use the structured mathematical process to test it, to refine it, and to validate it. And that leads to decisions that are solid, defensible, and way, way more likely to be right.
So let's make this real. Imagine you're the marketing manager for a new product, and you've just been handed a $1 million budget. The gut feel manager, they might listen to a few pitches and say, you know what, I've just got a really good feeling about that TV ad. Let's throw 80% of the budget at it. But you operate differently. You ask for the data. You want to build a model, just like we talked about. Sales is a function of TV spending, digital spending, and influencer spending. You get your team to figure out the numbers that link every dollar you spend to a projected increase in sales. And now your problem is crystal clear. Maximize sales with the one constraint being that all your spending has to be less than or equal to $1 million. Using the tools you have, you don't just guess at the best way to split the money. You discover the optimal strategy is actually 45% digital, 35% influencer, and only 20% on TV, because your model shows that the returns on TV ads start to drop off after that point. You see the difference? You haven't just made a choice, you have engineered a solution.
And what we just did in that marketing example, it has a name: strategic optimization. And let me tell you, this is the engine that drives modern business. It's everywhere. A portfolio manager at an investment bank, they're using it to build a portfolio that maximizes return for a certain level of risk. An airline, they're using it to schedule their entire fleet of planes to cut costs and fly as many passengers as possible. An operations manager for a giant retailer, they're using it to design their whole logistics network to get packages delivered faster. In every single one of these cases, the process is exactly the same. Define your goal, model the system, and then find the most efficient way to get there. Now, having these powerful tools is one thing, but it also comes with a huge responsibility to use them wisely. A model is only as good as the assumptions you build it on, right? And an analysis is only as good as the critical thinking you bring to the table. So let's turn to some really crucial postgraduate level advice, the common traps that can lead even the smartest quantitative minds to some seriously wrong conclusions. First, the absolute classic blunder: mistaking correlation for causation. You might notice that ice cream sales and the number of drownings are highly correlated. A really naive analysis might say, we should ban ice cream to save lives. But of course, there's a hidden variable: summer heat. It causes both. In business, maybe a competitor cuts their prices and your sales dip. Did they cause it? Or is there a bigger economic downturn affecting everyone? Acting on a false cause can be a disaster. Second, ignoring your model's assumptions. A linear regression model assumes the relationship is, well, a straight line. If you use it on data that's clearly curved, your model's output isn't just a little off, it's dangerously misleading. Third is over-relying on a single metric. Imagine a social media company that's obsessed with one thing: time spent on the platform. They might hit that goal, but if it's making users miserable and causing them to delete their accounts, they are literally optimizing themselves straight into long-term failure. And finally, and this one is so important, misinterpreting statistical significance. A p-value of 0.05 does not mean there's a 5% chance your theory is wrong. What it means is, if your theory were wrong, there'd only be a 5% chance of seeing the data you saw. It's a subtle difference, but understanding it is what separates a technician from a true analyst. This quote from Carly Fiorina just nails what this is all about. Data is just raw, unorganized facts. Your math skills let you shape that raw data into structured information. Tables, models, stats. But that last step, the most valuable step, that's all you. It's your critical thinking, your business sense, and your wisdom that turns that information into real, actionable insight. The math is the process, but the insight, that's the prize. So, you've built the foundation, and you've been warned about the common ways it can crack. The natural question is, what are you going to build on top of it? Let's look ahead and see how the principles from this course are really an essential roadmap for the rest of your time here and for your entire professional life. I really want you to see this course not as some prerequisite you just had to check off a list and can now forget about. Think of it as the launch pad that sets the entire trajectory for everything that comes next. The analytical rigor you've developed here isn't just for another quant class. It's the new operating system for how you're going to approach every single business discipline from here on out. And this is what that roadmap actually looks like. Next year, when you're in advanced corporate finance, building a discounted cash flow model to value a company, you're going to be projecting future cash flows and discounting them back to today. Well, that requires a deep understanding of functions to model that growth and geometric series to figure out its long-term value. Then in your third year, a class like operations management is basically just a series of incredibly complex optimization problems, whether it's the traveling salesman problem for a company like FedEx or inventory management for a retailer. And if you go on to postgrad studies, whether it's an MBA or a master's in data science, you're going to find that those three pillars we talked about, quantifying uncertainty, modeling complexity, and optimizing outcomes, are the absolute bedrock of the entire curriculum. And here's the most important point of all. The models, the data, the numbers, they don't make decisions. They provide evidence. They show you the trade-offs. They clarify the risks. But at the end of the day, you, the human leader, you have to make the call. You will be the one to interpret the results, to weigh them against all the things you can't quantify, to look at the big strategic picture, and to chart the course. You have the tools. You understand the language. I have absolutely no doubt that all of you are equipped to become exceptional leaders and analysts. The only question left is the one you have to answer for yourselves. What kind of decision maker will you choose to be? Thank you, and I wish you all the very best.